a lot of new people here, which I'm grateful for. So, hi, Lito. I am kind of in this like season where there's a lot of changes happening in my life, and I feel like that is going to naturally be reflected in a lot of the content I create, a lot of the platforms that I'm on. So, this is a great time to be like just tuning in. But I thought I should also take the opportunity to introduce to some people and kind of like reintroduce to others exactly what is happening in this space and on this podcast. So, watching the bloom, just like in the most simple terms, is for anyone who's ever felt like they're still becoming. Um, I feel like we spend so much of our times kind of chasing this finished version of ourselves. So whether that's the most healed version, the most successful version, or just kind of this version of ourselves that has it all together. But flowers aren't beautiful only when they're bloomed. There's so much beauty in like the seeds, the roots, the just stretching towards the sun, and honestly, even the storms that make them stronger. Like there's beauty like in that. And so I always wanted this podcast to be about paying attention to like that part. I know when I first started this podcast, kind of my tagline that I would say in like everything was how the fingers in the dirt are just as beautiful as watching the bloom. Um, and I honestly don't remember where I read that many, many years ago, but it was something that really impacted me. So obviously, when I wrote my first book, it was called Watching the Bloom, and my Substack, where I write regularly, was named after that. And so then when I started this podcast, it naturally became this like continuation of that. Um, and so there's this kind of this space where I am going to not put it out there that I'm going to do this every week. But that is was always the goal. So every week, every 2 weeks, like honestly, sometimes I may post a couple times in like 1 week. But whenever I do put things out there, this is going to be a space where we explore together like faith and motherhood and creativity and healing and justice and relationships and like just all of these ordinary moments that I feel like quietly shape who we're becoming. Um, and this is also going to be a space where like we celebrate growth and kind of especially now because of the season of life that I'm in, we're going to sit honestly with grief. For those of you that follow me on other platforms, like you probably have seen that my granny just recently passed away. And it was a very unexpected thing. My granny is someone that I am extremely close with. We live together. I've been her caretaker for the last couple of years, all my life, aside from college and then the brief period where I moved to California. Like we've lived together since the day I was born. She was the reason I started Savage Daughters. She's the reason that I do most things that I am. Like she really shaped the person that I am. And so I'm like definitely navigating what life is like, without her. I'm not sure when this is actually gonna go out into the world, but right now at recording, this is actually the first time I've ever walked into this house without her. So it's kind of like a heavy time. But that's I want us to be able to sit honestly with that grief, any grief, like in this podcast. And also that means we're gonna also laugh at the chaos and we're gonna ask hard questions. And for me, I realized this actually yesterday, and I'll kind of get into that like as well. But something that is really important for me, like with this podcast, is that throughout all of this, everything that like I named, I want us to be able to remember that God is often doing his most meaningful work long before we ever cross the finish line. And that was something that really came to me yesterday. So my church does this series every summer called At the Movies. And we watch a lot of like movies together for a few weeks, and then we talk about the messages that are in them. But and I wrote it down so I didn't like forget and like screw it up. But something that was said on Sunday. two things. One was that we love what God has in store for us, but most of us don't want the process to get there. And also what God does what God does in us during the process is often more important than what God does at the finish line. And as soon as like I heard that, I was just like watching the bloom. Like that was literally the whole reason that I created this. And it's something that I really want to be comfortable to be like more open about. Um, that I talk a lot about obviously the magic in the mess and finding the beauty in the chaos. And in a lot of the episodes, I feel like this is very apparent and it comes through, especially in that first episode, the very first episode. So if you're just jumping in, I don't have this on YouTube, but it is on Spotify. I did an episode with my best friend about discernment and friendships like in motherhood, and we really talk about that a lot and stuff there. But I want to be very open about the beautiful work that God is doing in my life before I cross that finish line. Because I want to be very clear that I am not here doing this podcast because I've arrived in any way. Like I'm here because I'm blooming also. And something too that really kept like replaying in my mind is that there are so many messages out there about blooming. But if you're actually just taking the title like of this podcast, watching the bloom, watching is actually the key word that I want people to take away from this rather than blooming. And actually wrote something like about this. I was saying because watching is something that implies presence. And so it's something that says, I'm not rushing you to become someone else. I'm going to sit with you while you unfold. And that's so much of what I want. Not even just with this podcast, is the reason that I, for majority of my life, have been an overshare online. It's why I create content and stuff in general because it sounds so freaking cliche and woo woo or like whatever. Like, but I just want to be everyone's like internet bestie where like we grapple with so many of these things together. And I have just been receiving over the last week so much confirmation of I really feel like this is my purpose, like in life and the internet and like everything is to be able to sit with people and for us to be able to be in community and do life together in whatever ways that looks, you know. So whether it is in my everyday community that I am like very involved of, like in my home, or being able to share things on this podcast and us like communicating that way. I don't have a lot of it like worked out yet, but I am actually working on something with this podcast of a way for it to be like more interactive and us to be able to, if you are someone that is in my personal life, you know that I am notorious for this actually isn't my only podcast. I actually send podcasts every single day to my friends in the form of voice notes. Like I am a huge advocate of 20-minute long voice notes. So I want to be able to expand that and be able to share that with more people. So anyway, I will, as soon as I get all that worked out, I will share more of that here. But I really just want to be very clear in that like this is something that is really important to me that like we're doing together, you know? As cliche as that sounds. And so I want people to think of this as like, I don't know, grabbing a dirty soda with your internet bestie while we notice kind of the petals that are unfolding, one conversation at a time. So thank you for being here. Um, One thing that I also am going to try to get a lot better about in the space is that when I started doing this podcast, I was so adamant and like I posted about it relentlessly and I've mentioned it a lot in like other previous episodes that this was my creative outlet because I love creating content. I love yapping. I love writing. I love like all of these like creative things. And was blessed enough to be able to turn that into a career, which I am very, very grateful for. But also, kind of the downside of that is everything that I was creating and putting out into the world was always kind of connected to work in some way. And I really wanted to have something that was for me, that was not work related. It was me saying whatever the heck I wanted to about whatever I wanted to. And there was not this pressure of like production and all these things. So I was like, I'm starting this podcast. I'm going to say what I want and I'm just going to put it out there. There's no editing, there's no like nothing. And I did that for like the first like two episodes. And then I started kind of, which I'm grateful for, it kind of picked up a lot more than like I thought it would. And so I started feeling that pressure of like, oh, there's this expectation of this certain level of like whatever. So, and unfortunately, that turned into like, as y'all can see, I have not done a lot of episodes like at all. So I am kind of making this promise to myself that I want to go back to that. I want to be able to pop on here like every week or sometimes maybe a couple times a week and just chat like this and then put it out there, Like, so if you're expecting this like heavily polished, edited, like type thing, this is not the podcast like for you. If you want real conversations where I may just jump in for like 10 minutes and like yap the way I am right now, then like this is definitely the space for you. Um, Also something else that I forgot to earlier. I was saying how I've been just receiving so much confirmation and which has been very great because it's also been in the midst of like carrying this grief and wondering like what the heck is my life supposed to look like now, like without my granny. I feel like this has definitely very much been her like guiding me through things and showing me that like I'm on the right path. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I just need to really get back to that. Um but I'm going to talk a lot more in depth about this on another episode, maybe tomorrow. um, about how again, if you follow me on other platforms, you saw that I was in LA and I was in Long Beach. And it was a much shorter trip than planned because unfortunately, 24 hours after being there, I received the news about my granny, and so we had to return home. But while I was there, I was able to reconnect with some people like from my past that were very important to me at one point in time. Again, I will go into this whole thing because it was a very life changing trip in so many ways. But my first like, well, I guess like technically my second night like there, I attended this event and someone there made a comment, which I again follow me on other platforms. I posted about this like on Instagram. But there was chat like he talked about what it was like to like hold hope for someone when they weren't able to. And I've experienced that a lot with my closest friends in the past like few days or week now at this point of like dealing with everything of my granny's like transition and like the end of her life. And it just really kind of affirmed for me also of like I said, of us watching this bloom together and us experiencing all these things together of what it's like for I've always felt that I needed to be the person to like hold things for people like all the time. And that goes back to also posted a reel about this yesterday about like having a servant's heart. And that is something that I definitely inherited from my granny. And I'm very, very like honored to hold that position in my community and just all the things. But I'm also really working through this thing of like what does it look like to open myself up to allow other people to like hold things for me like as well. And like that night I just kind of like started crying while like and he probably thought I was nuts because he didn't know anything that was happening. But like when Chad said that night, because also a few hours before was when I got the news of my granny and I just was like on autopilot, and I was like, I just need to go through the motions of like I can't fly out tonight, so I'm gonna go to the event that I was already planning on going to and just like kind of distract myself. But anyway, it was just a message that I really needed to hear about what it's like to hold things for people when they can't hold it themselves. And I'm really my prayer is that the space will be that. That kind of honestly in this season, it may be a lot of me asking y'all to like hold things for me. And um there will be seasons where I'm happy to like hold more for others. But anyway, I felt it was really important to bring that up because between like that happening, like the trip happening in the first place, which I'll like go more into about. And it also has been the catalyst for me revamping a lot of things in my business and really trying to get back to like the core of like who I was. And I honestly feel like that is such like ode to like to my granny, you know, of like things that she instilled in me and things that she believed in with me. And I think I've gotten away from a lot of that. And I want to get back to that. And so this is, you know, again, part of like watching the bloom. So again, I am so grateful that y'all are here. I know many of you that have joined me recently have joined because of my relationship, but I hope you will stick around and get to know me like outside of that. All right. Good night, y'all.